advisal of this. Do I have to do a roll call?
Yeah, and it has to be in a sergeant voice.
Oh, yeah. And just note the attendance.
I don't know, this is the new agenda that everyone has, so. You can do just a visual roll call.
Okay, I'm doing a visual roll call, and it looks like Cheryl is not here, and Jenny is not here at the moment, and everybody else is here. So the first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting. And I think we were all at the last meeting. Did anybody have any comments about the minutes or a motion to approve them? Did anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Actually, I'm packing it. Okay. Is there anyone who wants to address the committee on matters not on the agenda? Doesn't look like it.
Mike is on it.
Staff announcements.
Sure, I'll go first. Just a reminder to reapply if you haven't already, thanks to those who have, to be reappointed. And if you were asking that, they asked that everyone serve until January 24th or until reappointed or replaced, whichever comes first. And then, and I don't know the due date on that, so soon.
Anyone has given notice?
Lynn Eve did, yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it, but my work conflicts too much, time-wise, that I feel it's difficult for me to miss so many meetings, so.
Yeah. You'll be missed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just a little homework and timeline here is that starting in January, the process of doing the next PAPPA and PAPP, I added an A in there, and work plan will start. And so January, the timeline is that the council will pass down kind of their 2-year plan at their January 22nd meeting, and since we meet on the 14th, we won't have their direction at that point. So we'll really just start reviewing the work plan, and the new committees, the new committee will be appointed by then, and committee members. And so January, February will really be reviewing and revising both the PAPP and the work plan, and then hopefully in March, the committee is ready to present that to council. So
So
that's
we're
the
trying to go to
homework.
the March meeting, we're trying to get it done before the March City Council meeting?
Yeah, the second March meeting, so we would have,
And when-
January,
what date is
February, and
that?
March.
Oh, we would have the March meeting to continue to
We
work
could do
on
this,
it. Okay.
yeah, because we could get on the I don't have the date, but the third Monday's meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we still could discuss it finalize everything at our meeting beforehand, so we could just have an agenda item on their council.
And to clarify, the reason that we have to hear from City Council first is because our work plan has to align with their missions or for everybody, right?
Yeah. So this will be my first time doing it as well, but as I understand it, each item on the work plan needs to align with what their 2-year plan is, and I guess we'll kind of walk through it as well. But you couldn't say, I don't have an example, but something totally off the wall that didn't align with their 2-year plan.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Any other staff announcements?
No, that's all I have.
Committee member announcements?
I have something. I'm happy to announce that Love the Bulb got a Zellerbach Community Arts Grant for $2,000 to help with our May Bulb Fest.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I was going to say during announcements, thank you very much to Lynn Eve, for serving on the committee, and it's been a pleasure. So.
Yes.
I'll see you around town.
Is this your last meeting, or are you gonna come again?
Yes, I'm not able to come to the January meeting.
Yeah. Thank you for your service.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, presentations, we don't have one. Discussion and possible action on matters related to, okay, 6.1, defining public art under the Public Art Master Plan and Art in Public Places Ordinance. What time does Jenny usually get here? Because,
Between 7.
okay,
now
I
and
know she has an
7:10.
interest in this agenda item, and I'm wondering if we should have a motion to,
Yeah, that's a good idea.
could we have a motion, would someone like to make a motion to move 6.5 and 6.6 Fall into Haiku and Albany Film Fest up to the top of this part of the agenda?
I move that we
Yeah.
move those items up.
Okay,
Second.
okay, in favor? Aye, opposed. Okay, so we will then go down to 6.5, which is Fall into Haiku update.
Right, so, the poems have been out for a couple of weeks. My plan is to, take them down this coming weekend, so that'll be three weeks plus a little. Some have gone missing, but most of them seem to be there, and, I get good comments from people, so I guess, it's been a nice program.
It's been wonderful.
I've seen people posting their poems all over their social media feeds when they find their signs, yeah, people like to do that.
Neat. We should have a hashtag. Hashtag fall into haiku.
And, thanks Eva for your help on the map and getting all
Yeah.
that stuff up.
Yeah.
There is a map, up on the city website now, so you can search for poems, you get a full list of poems, and you can find out where they are, either as a yard sign or in one of the big belly ad panels.
Can,
Need to borrow that tool again.
okay. Oh, there's a.
Oh, haiku mark.
I was just in Haiku Maui.
Oh,
I
really?
was thinking of you the whole time.
I need to borrow the cart.
Sure,
so.
sure.
Can I
Anything.
pick it up on is someone there on Friday, or should I come on Thursday?
Yeah, I'll just put it together.
Okay,
You can pick it up.
thanks. I need that little
The-
screwdriver tool
The tool,
for the big
the
bellies.
cart,
Tool in the cart.
just that. Anything else?
Well, if your drill has batteries, then
We have 2 batteries.
yeah, they don't work though. They don't.
They don't work for very long. But you need the drill?
But for unscrewing those things, it makes the work pretty fast.
Oh. You don't just use the hand tool.
Got like 50.
Yeah, no, I thought
Right,
you were on.
right over the
I didn't
top.
realize you could attach it to the drill though.
Yeah,
But,
it works
okay.
nice. You can put it in reverse and
Okay, sure. We'll give you the 2 batteries that we have.
yeah.
Okay, so drill.
Can you charge them up?
Yeah, they're supposed to be charged, but maybe they weren't.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
And just to update you, Jenny, we just reordered the agenda slightly so that we are
And
doing Peter's
Peter,
updates.
remind us, what
Right.
is the reason
Thank you.
for removing them earlier this year?
Well, they've been up about 3 weeks, and so I think that's plenty of time for
Lot of-
everyone to have seen it.
Yeah.
And then the following weekend is a little problematic for me, so,
Yeah.
it's several hours.
Yeah.
I think we moved the whole thing earlier, right?
We started a little
Shift it.
earlier, so it's ending a little earlier
Yeah.
too.
I know that Peter spends a lot of time installing them and uninstalling them too. So I just want to put a plug in. If anyone is free this weekend and can spare 2 hours to go spend some quality time with Peter, please let him know.
How I describe it. but
Yeah, he may even buy you coffee or what are the incentives?
If you have a Fitbit, it's a great way to get points.
Uh-huh.
You get your steps in.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, thank
I
you.
hit 18,000 the first day.
Wow.
Anything else on the haiku program?
No.
Okay, and so then,
Except that I think we are gonna do it next year with some maybe budgetary plans for replacing signs that have gone missing.
okay.
Shouldn't be an issue.
So 6.6 Albany Film Fest update?
Right, we just had a meeting of the Film Fest committee at my office this afternoon, and everything is moving along. The films are all in, the deadline has passed, so we will definitely have enough. It's going to be a slightly bigger program this year. There will be screenings on Sunday at the Twin, and then the whole, several nights, 3 or 4 nights possibly, of the previous week will be feature curated presentations at the Twin as well with different films something on, like an echo film. We're trying to get a hold of Sorry to Bother You,
Oh, yeah.
and a bunch of other things have been
Cool.
been picked out. And there's a kids show on the Saturday before, which is usually at the community center. Trying to get sponsors. Sponsors are elusive, don't like to answer their phone or make commitments, so that's ongoing. The gala is it's the Friday, I think it's the Friday night before Film Fest. And that, as last year, is gonna be at the Mechanics Bank on San Pablo Avenue, and everyone on the committee will get an invite. So that's, we are trying also to set up a new agreement with the Albany Community Foundation so that they can accept donations for the Film Fest and also run a kind of a, membership program. There's no, the city doesn't seem to have any mechanism for doing that, for people donating money to anything, or paying by credit card. So until that happens, the Albany Community Foundation has stepped in and agreed to help out, but the city has to feel comfortable with all the plans, so that's kind of the holdup. It's difficult to find time for everyone in the city and the Community Foundation and the film festival people to get together and talk about how to structure that agreement. I don't think it needs to be a long agreement, but the city has to sign off on it, and so far they haven't. So that's the film festival.
Okay, thank you. So now, what is now item 6.3 is defining public art under the Public Art Master Plan and Art in Public Places Ordinance. Just background on this is we keep asking over and over again how we can spend that money. And we asked staff to look into that and tell us what they found out so that we can discuss that.
Yes. So it's been interesting on my part to kind of figure out exactly what it is, as you guys all brought up, is what the definition of public art is. And the idea of asking the city attorney was a good one because he drew a very clear line in the sand, is that the Art in Public Places ordinance, or let me back up, the fee that comes from permits, the 1.75% is an in lieu fund. So it's who I don't know what an example is, but anyone who doesn't want to do public art on their property, on their construction project, would donate 1.75% of the construction cost to the public art fund in lieu of building a permanent art structure at their facility. So the city attorney made it very clear that the public art funds really can only be spent for exactly that, for public art features. And in the ordinance, it really draws it out even clearer, that the public Art in Public Places program is to promote the acquisition, construction, installation, restoration, and maintenance of public art pieces. And then it defines public artwork as sculpture, monument, mural, fountains, frescoes, relief, paintings, drawings, etchings, original print and collage, mosaic, ceramics, weavings, carvings, stained glass, wood, metal, plastic, textile, earthworks, digital art, or electronic art. So with all the discussion that we've had of where is the line, it would actually be illegal to spend it on something that wasn't considered one of those features. So
Where does money for the Fall into Haiku program come from?
good point, and that came up as well. And we asked, and I got an answer too just today. Is that well, let me actually start with the sculpture loan program, because we asked that, and that came up at a meeting as well. Is that it is temporary, but his interpretation of the law is that it may result in permanent artwork, and therefore he was totally fine with that. That it was fine to spend money from the public art fund on the temporary sculpture loan program, excuse me. And then we brought up the haiku, and while he came to and he felt okay with it, it felt like it would be cleaner to not use the fund for the exact reasons that I had spelled out. He had said that if there was no public art features that were a priority, that the committee had identified as a priority, that funds could be spent on the haiku, but the city and staff recommend that we find alternative funding for the haiku program. So that could be a community foundation grant or other ideas for that $750 annually.
Could not it, well, it's a longer discussion, but if it's archived in a form of digital art online, does that make a difference? Because that's more permanent than anything. It's like eternal. It will never disappear. And if we were to make a concerted effort, in other words, to have a site online as a permanent archive of all the, not just haiku, but any other things that, like, because I know we're talking about performance art and other things like that, to have a record, photographic record, oral record, or written record of these things and have them online, wouldn't that satisfy the needs of the ordinance?
Not, I mean, if you look at the ordinance, in my non-attorney hat, it does not, but I'm happy to ask
But
that.
the ordinance can be revised. Is that what we're here to?
The committee can suggest, and I was gonna suggest, perhaps putting on, it's not on our work plan, so, moving forward, if the committee wants to look into and recommend that the ordinance be adjusted, they can do that. City council would have to approve that. Yeah,
Does this fund support the film festival as well?
no,
No.
How is the film festival, so because the film festival is always described as a city project, so what funds from the city go towards the film festival?
I would defer to Peter.
There's about $10,000 in sponsorship money, but then everything else, as far as I know, it comes from the general fund by way of the Cable Media Access
KALB.
Committee. Jeremy has a budget, and it's assigned to his committee to run the committee's operations from, I assume, the general fund. I know it's not from the Art and Public Places Fund, and I don't believe there's any other separate funding that the city has gone out to generate funds for the film committee, so it must be from the general fund.
And what is the budget, the city part of the budget?
You know, I don't know. I know the part that we pay in is usually around $10,000, $12,000, but I don't think that's enough because the city counts in staff time and room rentals, and I think it's mostly staff time, actually. Although, well, the stuff that's not accounted for, as far as I know, is mostly staff time. I don't know what other items are there. And that must be, fairly substantial.
I know when the city was still producing the Arts and Green Festival, because I was on that subcommittee, the money, I think it was similar to the film festival in that people were contributing money as sponsors to the event. That money was going to the city, and the city was essentially then spending that money on the event.
Right.
So the money wasn't really coming, I don't know, maybe that money is running through the general fund, but the city wasn't allocating like a amount up front that they were gonna spend on that event other than in staff time.
But
And
they had a budget, right?
yeah, there was a budget, but the budget, I don't know what would have happened if the sponsorship money hadn't come in. It was always my sense that the city wasn't going to spend any more money on the event than came in sponsorship
Right,
money.
that's my recollection as well. Yeah, and that they were a sponsor because of the staff time and the city park that they donated, and
I don't think that's true of the film festival. As far as I know, the city spends several $1,000s more than what is taken in by sponsorship and ticket sales. And does not object to doing it.
Pardon me, is the poet laureate part of the art budget, the art and public places budget? Or
There's
where
no
does,
money, the money comes,
She's
the
a
money she has
stipend.
received has come from the Albany Community Foundation.
Okay.
They've made a grant for that purpose to this, grant to the city, I think, and then the city turns around and gives it to her as a stipend.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't expend any money on that.
Right, that's a good question.
In fact, that conversation I do remember having, and we were told we couldn't spend any money on that.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if the, Fall in the Haiku is a program I'm most familiar with, if that's not eligible for funding as we got it previously, then are we expected to go out and fundraise for it or find a sponsor?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the logical one is the community foundation, and see, it would be interesting to have a conversation with
Well,
someone on the
they're already
community
paying for
foundation.
the poet.
They are, but you know, I have to say, like, everything I hear that is that council loves the haiku program, and that and so does everybody else. So it may be just worth a side conversation to see what the odds are of funding that. It's a fairly little, $750 a year. It feels like right in their ballpark, but
But I can see from the wording that it's hard to shoehorn it into it. It does have electronic art, so
mm-hmm.
if you want to stretch the definition of that in some fashion,
Mm-hmm.
a smart lawyer could do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have to get little electronic signs that like read haiku through the.
Yeah, I actually think that, I don't remember how it came about that we could fund it, but somebody came and said, well, you could put your APP money into it. We were like, okay, but I think that I think the concern with that is that it seems specifically excluded to me because of the signage restriction. You can't spend, when I read the ordinance, it said you can't spend art in public, or that banners and signs and anything mass produced is not public art under the ordinance. And if that's the case, and if it's meant to be an in lieu fund that can only fund the same kinds of things as you can do it as part of your project, then it seems like the signs wouldn't be allowable. Although whether a digital archive of poetry would be allowable seems like it would be a separate question.
Mm-hmm.
And is the, if you do the art on site, you have to document that the art is valued at 1.75%? How does that work?
Yeah, they do have to document it to the city. I know because if it's not worth that much, then you have to pay the difference.
To the fund.
To the fund,
Right.
yeah. So they do have to document it as they have to come with the documentation showing the budget and why it costs that much money.
Yeah. And do we know what the value of the Beasley sculpture at the senior housing is?
No, but it's as far as I know.
Was that like $180,000 or something?
As far as I know, it's satisfied. Like they didn't pay any
Yeah.
extra. Is that right?
Because
I wasn't here when you guys discussed that, so I don't know.
Yeah, it was fully satisfying.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They didn't have to kick anything extra
Right.
in.
Yeah.
And they know the number they have to hit, so they just make sure they hit it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Yeah, that's the problem with this kind of ordinance, yeah.
If we decide it's desirable to change or propose a change to the ordinance, what is the process for that? Council just says yes or no, or there's a committee and.
Well, first, because it's not on our work plan, that's the first step. So as soon as the new year starts and we start working on that can be a priority. And as long as it aligns with the council's strategic plan, and then if that goes through and the work plan is approved, then the committee would make a presentation to city council. Yeah.
Every time I've talked to Mayor McQuaid about this, and I've just been bumping into her kind of everywhere, and I've said we really need a lot of support for music performance or some kind of live performance, theater, theatrical. She says, how do we do it? So I think if we have friends who are on the council, and if we bump into Mayor McQuaid, say, well, this is how we would do it. We would amend the art in public places.
That's the easiest thing to do.
It's the easiest thing to do, to include performance, theatrical and poetic and musical performance.
So one step further than that is involving the city attorney and whether that's legal. right? Because it's very specifically earmarked for as an in lieu fund. It's only for sculptures. So
Right, can I ask you, I understood the in lieu part, but I didn't understand, I mean, we went straight from the in lieu part to the tight definition of an art, the art that's on that thing. And I wasn't sure whether the in lieu carried with it a definition that says, I thought it was in lieu of money, not in lieu of substance. Is that, can you tell me what
In
that
lieu
is?
of art. I think what Eva is saying is, would there be a question around what an in lieu fee is allowed to go to? If you say this is an in lieu
Yes.
fee, can you then spend it on something that doesn't seem to be in lieu of the original thing that they needed to do? So that would be an addition.
So-
that would be a question as to whether the ordinance could be, because the part of the ordinance you would amend, I think, is the part that says what the public art in public places money can be spent on, and so. Could you do that if you're calling it an in lieu fee, or would you have to then, does it become
Redefine.
something other than an in lieu fee? Does it become, is there some legal definition for what that fee is that's different?
Right, thank you.
I think that, there's the question of do you want to amend the ordinance, but I think it should be part of a larger strategy. And I think, kind of the steps that one could go through are to look at how other cities are doing their cultural funding. And if we shift the emphasis from public art, which people tend to define as objects, and this ordinance defines it as objects, there are a lot of examples of how other cities manage their cultural funding, and within cultural funding there are often various sources and also various uses, and often those uses include performance and spoken word and literature and so on. But I think that kind of coming up with a broader strategy and thinking that through, and then coming up with either an amendment or a new ordinance would be the way to go, rather than to just start tweaking and amending the ordinance without having an overarching strategy. And I think starting by studying what other cities are doing would be a good place to start.
I have collected all the documents that the city of Oakland has put together to curate the arts in the city of Oakland. So if somebody could do, I know Eva and I were talking, San Francisco has a huge arts fund. I'm not sure what's going on in Berkeley, but maybe you
It's
know.
the Berkeley Cultural Trust.
Okay.
San Francisco has a robust,
Really?
because
Very.
they have a
Hotel
hotel
tax
tax
fund.
So that's where
We don't have a lot of hotels.
Yeah, so they have, it's much larger. I mean, Berkeley Cultural Trust, they do a lot of granting to arts organizations.
Do you know the source
But
of
it's
revenue?
pretty small. I don't know exactly how where their funding comes from.
Do you feel like you could?
I could look into it.
Could you look into
yeah.
that? Because I have all the Oakland material.
And I think what comes up is there's an interest in looking into it. So again, because it's not on our work plan, we're not supposed to discuss it too much. We're supposed to really focus our meetings on work plan.
Okay.
So I think what the moving forward, I think as we start creating the work plan for the next 2-year budget or 2-year cycle, is putting this on and wording it however makes sense to word it about.
I just wanted to say too, just keying on something Susan said, that I think it would be maybe more productive in adding something to the work plan, thinking what that item is, to focus on sources of funding for arts activities and supporting the arts in Albany, not only on how this particular fund under this particular ordinance can be expended, because it's also not very much money at the end of the day. I mean, how much we have in there right now? It's
40,000-50,000.
yeah, it's not a lot. It doesn't grow very often.
Going down.
Yeah, because it only grows when someone does a big development project and decides not to put a sculpture out front. So it's not a source of money that's necessarily the be all and end all of everything. So I think backing up, as you were suggesting, and talking more about like, well, what are the other potential ways that the city could be supporting the arts, I think would be maybe the way to go.
And I agree with that, but I would also say that you don't know when a big project is going to come around. And I think that I can't imagine that 1.75% of that senior housing is only 180,000. Are you certain of that?
No, I'm not sure.
No,
about the
because
exact
I was just thinking if you have a 300 unit apartment building like one was proposed recently that didn't move forward on Albany Hill, I think I calculated that 1.75% of the likely cost of that project would be almost 3 million. So I think that, just because there aren't big projects right now doesn't mean that there won't be, and it's really important because you really don't want to spend 3 million on sculptures. That would be a huge waste. And so I think thinking ahead both to times when there's a lack of funds and what would happen if you had a real big chunk of change that would be incredibly valuable. I think that thinking about both of those things would be good. And then and we'll discuss this when it comes to the work plan and what's in there. But I think that this takes a lot more than committee members, looking up stuff. It needs a consultant, so it needs some money to do a report on what other cities are doing and best practices, so that so that the city council can look at that, and also not just strictly from the arts point of view, but more integrated with economic development and other parts of what the city is doing.
So when it comes time to put this on our work plan, then we need to incorporate all these different
That's
things
everyone's
to
homework for
define
January.
what our goal is and where we wanna end up.
Yeah, and January, really, again, we're not going to have direction from council, so it's really going to be looking at the last PAPP and work plan and seeing what got completed, what we're going to move to the next cycle. But once there's that guidance from council, I think that's when this should all come up and link it to what the council's guidance
Yeah,
is.
and we also, I believe we actually have to write that up, what we accomplished per our last work plan and our PAPP. I think somebody has to actually leave the meeting in January willing to write that up, so.
Right, and then looking at the work plan from 2017 to 2019, there is the recent initiatives and accomplishments, and then on the back, which I don't have, it's on this page, is 2017 to 2019 policy review and initiative. So there's two sections of
Right,
what did you do and what are you going to do.
right.
Yeah.
But we
So-
have previous ones that we can basically build on, use. as templates.
Absolutely, yeah. So if people can kind of look at that, if you need me to send this out, the work plan and PAPP, I can do that again. I think it's all online as well, but I'm happy to do that and look at, again, what have we done and what do we want to transfer to the next work plan as well.
Okay, thanks, Eva. Is there anything else that anybody wants to say about this question of defining public art under the public art master plan? You done with that one? Okay.
Can I just
Question, I'll do it after you. Well, here's my question. We've been talking about having a performance and an event to inaugurate the permanent and temporary sculptures along the Greenway. Can we use our funds to pay live musicians or to organize that event?
My hunch is no. But let me say this is that what's another example? Any ribbon cutting ceremony, if you will, is paid with the city pays for that, so it doesn't come out of a committee fund, if you will. So my hunch is no, but we can definitely look into it and ask.
As it gets closer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Susan?
just given that revising the ordinance, and especially if it's preceded by this kind of overarching strategy discussion and has to be part of the work plan, that's going to be a very long process. And so it could be, for the next year at least, it might be that this ordinance stands, at least. And so I think it's important to move forward expeditiously for that reason, because things move slowly. But I think also that looking carefully at the definitions, digital and electronic arts, online art to me seems like under the definition of digital and electronic arts. And so I don't know, it's up to the city attorney, not to the committee, but we can say that as people with expertise in art that occurs online can be defined as digital art, and same with electronic art. And so we can offer that opinion if we are of that opinion.
Yeah, and I think we can all talk about that in the, depending
Yeah.
on what's on the work plan.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item on the agenda, 6.2, grants. The committee will discuss its role with respect to arts-related grants. I asked to have this put on the agenda because this conversation has come up a lot when it has not been on the agenda and we have not been able to talk about it. So it seemed to me to make sense, especially because we were asking about what we could spend that fund on, to have a conversation about what we can do right now with respect to grants. And I think we can talk about what we could do in the future if the ordinance were changed, but it might not be the most productive conversation to have right now at this moment. And I also thought there might be questions on the committee about grants. There's a lot of different levels of experience on this committee with respect to grant funding, and so I thought it would be good to have a general conversation about that. I don't have any specific action in mind at this moment, but just to let people ask questions of Eva if there are things we need to know about how the city pursues grants, and express ideas we have about how this committee could be involved in grants. I know, like for my part, one thing I've been wanting to talk about is this question of matching funds, because it's come up, could we spend art in public places on matching funds? I mean, my feeling is the way the ordinance stands right now, we can spend it on matching funds if the funds that we request to be spended are going towards the things the ordinance says they need to go towards. So if somebody's project that they want to get funded by a grant would involve creating some piece of public art, it seems to me clearly that this committee could recommend that the city invest art in public places funds in that work of art. We might not be able to fund another part of that proposal, but I think that the question of what are matching funds just means money that the city is putting into a project it's collaborating on with a partner, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I'd just be interested to know what people feel their role is of the committee in pursuing grants or asking the city to pursue grants, and be able to talk about that.
And again, thinking about this after Jen and I talked as well, is that it's not on our work plan currently, so we're supposed to limit conversation when things aren't on our work plan. That being said, I think this would be another possible item for the next work plan of, researching additional funding sources and presenting it to council too, and seeing how it loops into their 2-year strategic plan as well. So then it can be on the agenda and there can be lots of discussion and diving right into it. So that was kind of a logical next step for grants as well, because it does keep coming up.
Can you describe for the committee how the city pursues grants right now? Like what kind of grant funding options you do go after and how you do it?
Yeah, in doing my research, I couldn't find any examples of a committee, presenting to council an option for doing grants. That being said, this is an advisory committee and they can advise council to apply for grants, and council gets to decide, again, how that weaves into their strategic plan. In the recreation department, I don't have an example of applying for grants myself, or even the director Shelley, but sure, Aleda in transportation, she applied for many grants that had to do with street improvements. Community development, they all, staff will identify a potential grant, and based on staff availability, it always does have to go to council. I think if it's over $5,000, council has to approve it. I don't know about the $5,000. I can check on that. So that's kind of the process. It's really been city driven and based on city staff availability as well. So I don't know if that helps, but
There's no one on the city staff who
Right.
is the official grant
Right.
writer.
right.
Do you ever hire outside people to write
I would
the
think
grants?
they do, and I didn't find that in asking around, but I would think that has happened before. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, as I said, I just wanted, because it had come up a lot, I wanted to make it possible for people to discuss it. So I don't know if other people have questions or ideas or recommendations. I mean, Eva's recommendation that we consider putting on the work plan for the coming 2 years, is that how long our work plan runs? That it is part of the mission of the Arts Committee to fundraise or hold fundraisers or some kind of, there's, the word fundraise is in our mission, I know, on the website. So it would potentially be reasonable to, I guess, research funding opportunities and take those opportunities to the city council. I would say, as a grant writer myself, it's hard for me to imagine this committee originating a grant proposal. We aren't the city staff, and we aren't going to know budgets and know those kinds of things. So it would be a matter of recommending that the council direct staff to do that, I guess.
Or collaborating with city staff.
Could someone remind me or confirm, aren't a lot of grants in this space collaborative in the sense will be a nonprofit working with the city, with the federal government, etc.? So is it possible, if we find the appropriate partners, you might have partners that have experience and staff to do a lot of the legwork, and city is in a sense endorsing, signing off, we would be advisory of some sort, but ideally there might be projects of that nature where the nonprofit or third party is really doing a bulk of the labor, and we're advising, helping, cities endorsing, etc.
I should also add that the way I see it is, the community project process. There was a set $14,000 set aside in the PAPP, and not ideally, but theoretically, it could have been used for 5 different small projects that the committee is issuing these grants. So I could see is applying for a grant for something permanent art as it's defined in the ordinance, and then maybe we have to do a process for all money given away, so there could be an RFP process that people could apply for these microloans, if you will, depending on how much it is. So kind of like the community projects program. Yeah.
Is there a policy for or against some type of corporate partnerships or commercial sponsorships of arts related activities?
Well, I mean, that's how the Film Festival and the Arts and Green
Yeah,
Festival
so.
ran their budgets, so I don't think there can be a prohibition.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd have to look into that if it came to that.
Concept, huh? Target.
No, I mean, it seems the
Although I think it would always be up to the city council to approve any budget, so
Yeah.
at the end of the day, they look at that stuff, and if they said, well, we don't like that sponsor, we don't want that sponsorship, I imagine they could say no.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Now 6.3, which is now 6.6, I think, sculpture loan program, update.
There's been a lot of movement on the sculpture loan project. Karen and Eva and I walked the whole system, and I went to the Rotary Club and asked them, because one of our sites has a Rotary Club sign on it, and they were thrilled. They were like, please put something there. So they've signed, and they don't feel like they need to sign a legal thing. We need to, this is our first time doing it, and so we're finding all this, all the details that go into installing a sculpture. Thankfully, the sculpture loan program that I'm working on doesn't involve any closure of walking space. It's all off the path. So our next step for that, we have a couple of next steps. One of them is to get a contract. I got the contract from the city of Yountville that has a sculpture loan program, and I'll give it to you, and you can take a look at it. And our guru from Orinda hasn't got back from me yet.
Okay.
But
Contract with a sculptor, you mean?
yeah, they have a public art walk program, and they get sculptural loans. And one of our sculptors said that he thought this was a very good and fair. I asked one of them, a really good and fair contract between him and the city about his sculpture and about liability and expectations. So we want to, again, it's sort of, we have to amass a certain amount of materials because other cities do this. And so I'm trying to collect materials that will help us move this project down the road. I think our next step, we decided, was to go to meet with Public Works and to walk over to the sites with Public Works. We needed something from you guys. What was it? We don't know. What was that? What were they working on?
pad
That's
size?
not me. They're working on that doesn't have to do with the sculpture loan program. Are you talking about the community notification piece?
Yes, because we need that for the sculpture loan program too.
Oh.
Right. Yes and no. And Peter's gonna do it by the January meeting. Well, and so I think we'll have that in time, and they will define permanent versus non-permanent. Non-permanent will have. I assume
Great.
we'll have different parameters of
Sure.
notification, but there will be some notification.
Right, we want to have a notification process. I want to be able to I also want to kind of boost it a little bit by going to the people who live in the immediate vicinity of the site and say, this is what it's going to look like, show them the pictures, get everybody, not to sign off on it, but to tell them, hey, this is what's happening. And I think we've learned that's a really important piece to do.
Find any language that could be used for that, for,
No, I haven't, because I thought you guys were on it, but I'll look.
I can look at it.
Yeah, I'll stay in touch with you about it if you like. So that's where we're at. I think it's exciting. I think it's going to look really nice. I think when the whole greenway is when we get the greenway to where we want it to be, which is the 2 creek arts and the loop and the 3 sculptures, I think it'll be really nice. It'll look really great. And the people in the community that I've talked to about it are very excited to see something happening on the greenway. So that it feels good. Feels like a good project. And it's moving.
Yeah.
Thank
you,
you.
Jenny.
No problem.
Done a great job.
And then I think since Cheryl's not here, are you gonna cover item whatever we're at now?
She's-
6.
she
I
sent
guess
me
that's
her-
6.6.
Lost track. I'll pass these around. The next show is Julia James, and the reception is Sunday, January 13th from 4 to 6. And the activity guide just came out, and she has a full page spread in there as well. So take extra if you want to hand them out or put them in your place of business as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So, can I ask,
About this, yeah.
no, actually, a completely unrelated matter. Are we done with the, is there anything else on the?
Future agenda? No, I think
Future
we did
agenda items would be the next item of discussion.
I just wanted to know what's happening with the loop. I should have asked during the staff update.
Yeah. So the loop is moving forward and just needs the no-mow grass, and they've decided to plant pittosporum, which is fast-growing, tall shrubbery, if you will, and that appeased the neighbors. So
It
they're
did.
moving forward.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Great.
That's awesome. I did see some kids. I was telling Peter and Eva, I saw some kids playing on the loop. The pig fencing was kind of down, and they were in there like rolling around on the loop. And I was like, yes.
Yeah, I have also seen a lot
That's
of
cool.
kids playing in there.
If you ever see the fence down, put it back up. Because
Sorry, I'm on my way to the pool and
I
nothing
think they're
stops
planting
me.
and they're not supposed to technically be on there, but yeah.
Okay, so item 7, future agenda items, requests for agenda items. So next month we need to have review the last work plan, whatever the phrasing would be on that, and I don't remember how we. I think we take notes and then someone takes it away and writes it up, which could be me or someone else, and then we review it super quickly at the next meeting, and the next meeting is more, by that time we have city council's official guidance for everyone, and then we really focus that next meeting on new stuff that we want to add. Is that correct?
That's kind of how I envisioned it as well, and I'll get more guidance just because I haven't gone through the process, but.
So I think then also we need to request that staff look at the PAPP and update us on any projects that are on our PAPP, because there are some little loose ends. I was just noticing that the Toyota sign still looks the way it has always looked. And just in general, if you can bring in a list of those and let us know whatever kind of update there is on any of them, so we know what's been put to bed and what has not, that would be good.
There's no movement on the Toyota money, so it's still sitting, waiting at
City
this
still
point.
has it.
City still has it, at last I checked. And if there's anything else not on the PAPP, tell me now or shoot me an email that if you want me to look into that. So we'll have a more exact idea of the balance too in the fund.
What
Is
is
there
what is the
anything on the
Toyota sign?
horizon as far as new
Oop.
projects,
Say it again.
new projects,
New.
new money?
Yeah,
There's no new money. It's
construction.
just whatever Jeff Bond presented, and none of those. My guess is none of those would be available in 2019, and maybe 2020. Those are kind of far off. But and we don't know if they would do their own public art piece or do an.
But I would like to know how long the Toyota people have, because they've been here a number of times now, and I think they had pretty clear direction the last time they were here. So I would like to know if there's whoever's in charge of making that decision, but how long they're giving Toyota to decide.
Yeah.
If
And
they're
if
going
they
to do
haven't,
something or
maybe
not.
they should.
Yeah, they haven't, and it's been a while. So
Toyota. What? Susan had asked what the Toyota sign
So
is.
the Toyota sign
What
was
did
their public art, and they came and they went and they came and they went and they ended up putting something up that they knew was more signage than our plan allowed for. So they came and they showed us and we said, you got to take the signage off.
and our ordinance allows
Yeah,
for
then-
actually.
exactly. Thank you. Then the ordinance allowed for, and so in order to get the money from the plan, they need to go back and fix their image and take the signage off.
So this is the Toyota down by Target.
It is, and if you go and
There's a public art piece there?
it is. I know, and you would miss
Bench
it.
with a
Small
sign.
one.
There's a little bench right outside the walkway that leads into the front door, and there's a beautiful Latique. Is that the name of the photographer? Is that his
I
name?
can't remember the photographer's name, but
Oh, he's that French photographer from the early 1920s.
makes
Really
all the race
beautiful.
car pictures.
Really beautiful
Vintage.
photograph. But then there's like a whole lot of words about other stuff. So I mean, it was a content to the photograph, but we really there's a very strict limitation on signage. And so it took up about a third of the piece.
It's half of it.
Half, maybe half anyway. We were irate.
Well, yeah. Anyway, the bottom line is they said they'd do something. They
And they
haven't done
haven't.
it. So
They have not done.
Been about a year since
It's
they were
been a
here.
year.
yeah, it's been a while. So it would be good to know, like, do they have an endless amount of time to do it, or
Right.
what's the
Good
what's the
call.
rule on
Thank you,
that?
Jen.
Anyway, and anything else, if there is anything else you see. Actually, can you send the PAPP and the work plan out sooner rather than later, Eva, so that people have more time? For me, we only have a couple days to look at it, I can't spend too much
Yes,
time
I
looking
will
at it.
send that this week.
Okay, any other items that we need on upcoming agendas? It is true that the next few meetings, we will have to do a lot of work plan and PAPP stuff, and that takes a lot of time and discussion. But still, if there are agenda items people want,
I'd like the sculpture loan update.
okay,
There may be something on the film fest.
okay. Cheryl probably wants the gallery on there.
Yeah. And
Okay.
Brenda, did you Bart for January? Or do you need a little bit more
haven't
time?
been in touch with them lately, so I'd rather err on the
Okay.
side of.
Put it off.
not-
You let us know when you're. We're all excited about it.
Okay.
And we have to put in our applications for reappointment.
Right.
Yes, please.
The
Oh,
next,
yeah.
More homework.
next meeting is January 14th here at 7:00, and we need a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Okay, we're out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mic drop? No, we're out.
Hey. Eva, do you want this Yountville contract?